Welcome everyone to this episode of the Windsor Re-Up. We got myself here, and we also got Jeremy McGraw. Guys,
Good evening. Good evening.
good evening everyone, and welcome to this eventful episode. So we're gonna keep this a little tighter. We're gonna try to get straight more to the numbers, but I know there has been a lot of stuff been going on in the news since me and you did an episode last. I think, well, obviously last time we did in January, but since then, loss of the
Shit got
markets.
real, eh? And
Yeah, a
then
lot of
went away.
shake up, the Canadian dollar, tariffs, you name it. So I guess before we get into it, how you been, Jeremy? Because it's been a month. Talk to me.
Yeah, I know it's good. I timed my vacation right, so I was able to come back yesterday just for this. Then I got one more week here, and then I'm actually going to head out with a good friend of mine, a good collaborator we have, Graham Thompson. We're flying out to Lake Tahoe to go skiing, so
Beauty.
that'll be fun. But yeah, I was in Florida. I got to check out. It's always good when you travel to kind of see how their market's going. So I was in Orlando for about 5 days. I got to attend a really cool golf tournament. It was like one of those timeshare events. Great way to hack your travel and get a lower travel fee is to attend like a stupid 90-minute timeshare.
Yeah.
Just don't get suckered into buying one, obviously, but you just go to it. They throw you a bunch of different things. Like I got 3 days worth of golf. It was the LG, it was at the Women's PGA Tour, which was great. And
Okay.
they
Right
teamed up
on.
with celebrities. Like they had Anthony Anderson there. They had Jeremy Roenick, who I'm named after, was really cool to see him. They had Larry the Cable Guy. Uh, they had Don Cheadle. They had a bunch of like famous actors and celebrities, right? And they
Right.
were teamed up with a PGA Tour player, a female one, and then they had some amateurs there, both male and female, which was really really cool. And the best part about it is all you could eat food and drink throughout the whole day. And then
Holy
we
heck.
had a concert which was supposed to be Flow Rider after.
He still
He
does
had to
music?
bail out. Yeah,
All right.
I was excited for it.
Yeah, no, no, I'm not,
They
I don't have anything
replaced him.
against it. I just, you don't really hear about Flow Rider these days. That's all.
Of course, yeah. He was it. They replaced him with Three Doors Down, which is a really good band. Seen a few times at Caesars Windsor,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, once again, more all you can eat food and drink, which was really cool. And I'm talking top shelf stuff, so I'm not like paid by them. It was just a really good event. I paid like $400, got 5 days, 4 nights, and that included alone was worth it. Um, and then I guess the day after I went, they had flow. I was trying to get tickets. They had Luke Bryan, which alone was probably worth a few $100 with
Oh,
all you can eat and drink.
that's cool.
So,
And how about on the real
yeah, it was
estate
fun.
front? How's things with the real estate front going for you?
Figuring the things out, obviously, potentially becoming a 51st state. Where do you want to go? Orlando, I liked it, didn't love it. Not really a big city for me. It's one of those places you just go there if you're a Disney person or if you're a Universal person, I think. Or if you're potentially just looking for a timeshare.
Hmm.
Other than that, I went to Tampa for a few days. I love St. Pete's. So I did St. Pete's Beach, did St. Pete's, which is we stayed in downtown. Um, I was down in Tampa, the downtown portion, did the river walk there. I went up to Ybor, I think they call it, which is a kind of a Colombian part of the area, and it's yeah, free range roosters walking around. They had a really, really uh great restaurant called Columbia since 1905. Um, Great size platter there, and that place was busy. It was probably one of the biggest restaurants I've seen, and it was like a 45-minute wait. And I kid you not, that place it had to be about 15,000
Oh
square
man,
feet as a restaurant.
we need
It
something
was
like that to
massive and
anchor some areas in Windsor. Some new restaurants.
it's cool. It was definitely interesting to see. And it was good to see people out and about. What was cool about Tampa was that there was a bunch of different areas and each had their own vibe. Like for example, St. Pete was about 20 minutes outside of Tampa, and St. Pete had its own little like kind of like a Miami Beach vibe. I
Hmm.
really liked it. It was really cool. Downtown reminded me of Toronto. Um, Ybor kind of it was similar. They had a similar place in Miami as well, but it was really really cool to see. And it was very old, but it was in well put together condition. But yeah, I love St. Pete's. I love the Tampa area. It's definitely something that's interesting right now because a lot of tech and innovation has kind of moved from California down that way.
Hmm.
So interesting to see what happens. Florida is a nice weather all year round. Obviously, I can't get a visa there yet, so I'm
Oh
still
yeah,
here.
yeah. There you go.
How about yourself?
uh,
How have you been?
Things are great today. Actually, we closed on our flip here in Windsor, so I'm happy about that. We're pretty stoked. Everyone got paid back, so I'm happy. Uh, Besides that, looking to do a couple more deals. So always looking at the market, seeing what's up. I saw an interesting eightplex the other day, listed for an ACAP price reduced to 780, but it's near
Where is that?
Wyandotte and Olet, so it's not the
Oh
greatest area,
wow.
and that's why the price point's so low. But I'll send it to you after the fact and see what you
Is
think.
that an off market?
Uh Maybe actually, maybe it might be off market. That's why. But I'll show you. I'll show you.
If anyone's looking, Tom's got a hookup.
Maybe. But the area, it's downtown, so it's still kind of like a maybe like a C minus. I don't know if it's D, but um, when it's closer downtown, it's kind of there's the stigma. But assuming that
Downtown and what?
the
Like
don't
what
downtown like
area?
Wyandotte and
Like
Olet
all that?
almost. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
yeah.
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 So it's not amazing, but maybe in a couple of years when the city comes back, it's like maybe that's a long term buy and hold where you're saying, okay, in a couple of years it'll get better. Yeah,
The biggest issue with that particular spot would be the homelessness.
yeah, exactly.
Wyandotte, because you have the straight walk from basically the, what is it, the Goodfellows? I would say would they have the soup kitchen there, or they have like helping, they basically help out some of the homeless or the needy.
Hmm.
And then the YMCA, and then basically it's all kind of along that, Wyandotte turf that goes into downtown, which is the old that area, which is all downtown, and
Yep.
then pushes into Walkerville, right? So, um, interesting though. Price is right,
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah. I'm looking at actually at the picture right here. I'll show you after. I'll show you after, and then
Yeah,
we'll chat
I
about it.
had one not far from there. I was an off market fiveplex.
Mm.
So
See you guys.
we'll swap some information over.
We will. Off market's where it's at, guys. If you can, well, generally speaking, if you can find stuff off market, there's a little less competition. Um, there's maybe a chance to be a bit more creative with your financing options as well, because uh, there often markets it's nice to have, but it's not to say there's not stuff
So
on the MLS. So
your property there on Prado is sold to close, cash in
yes,
hand now. So that
closed.
means you're
Yep,
a buyer.
I am a now buyer. Yes,
So
I
if
have been
anyone
in the
has
past, but
deals,
now we really want to buy. So yes, you're right. We're always hungry for the next deal, and we love Windsor. And we want to do deals in our backyard. So
well, that's
pass my
interesting to
way.
know because I'm pretty much my Drillard property. I'm hopefully refinancing that out this month. I've talked to a
Oh
few people,
yeah,
just
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
see what's going on with that.
You got the windows in now
It's
in the front, right?
Yeah, it looks great. So it's ready to roll. So if anyone knows anyone looking for a 3 bedroom, 1 bath house or a commercial shop on Drillard, Ford City area, a very, very bumping location. We're starting to do some showings. I think I have two of them scheduled this week,
Mm-hmm.
off market without even zero advertising on that. So it's
Oh
really, really good
wow.
to see.
See, word of mouth
And
goes
the
around,
group,
especially in these areas, especially in like the
yeah, the
Ford City
group
with that's
there is
desirable areas.
great.
Yeah,
So, I mean, great BIA program, great people in general. I really like the area. And the
absolutely.
property like 2 doors down from me just sold. So I have like an architect next door to me. He just bought. And then next to him was a fourplex that had an additional vacant piece of land that just sold for like I think 650.
Oh
So
geez, wow.
which is makes my stuff look good, right? Someone's gonna buy it, fix it up a little bit, which is really, really great for the neighborhood
Yeah,
to see
great
that kind
comps
of
for
stuff
the
starting to
area.
happen.
Yeah,
So what do we have
yeah.
on the docket today?
I think the main thing we want to talk about is what's on everyone's mind, the tariffs. So
Ooh.
I'll share my screen here. I think everyone knows that uh, it's been a little wild this past week, especially with Trump threatening a tariff. But Jeremy, I know you wanted to talk a bit more in depth about it, and maybe you can maybe relate it back to how it affects Windsor specifically. Even if the tariffs haven't hit yet, maybe you can describe why these are still maybe a concern in a month from now if we can't get our crap together as Canadians.
Great question. Obviously the issue we have is we're such a small country. I think we tried hitting Texas with a few things, and Texas came back and was like, "Wait a second, you're basically like population wise the same. Like you're smaller than us. It's not going to happen."
Yeah.
So, kind of give you an idea. Obviously, there's people either love or hate the guy. There's Donald Trump, right? Um, he's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He has a book that was a bestseller, The Art of Negotiation, right? I think I said it right. Art of Negotiation.
I think maybe it's
Art of the
art of the
Deal.
deal. Yeah.
Art of the Deal. That's right. My apologies. I was just thinking negotiation right, in my head the whole time.
Yep.
But yeah. Anyways, in regards to that, we have on your sheet right here, we have the list of products from the United States that we're basically subject to a 25% tariff. So this was our counter back. Do we have one that the United States countered? Or like what they started off with, or do you want me to just quickly
No,
go
that
over
one was
that?
actually taken off the website, and I think that's
Okay.
because it got postponed.
So
So I couldn't pull that up actually.
we'll start off with the chat GPT here. He's kind of given me a list of things of the reasons why Trump wants to hit us, good old Canada, with some tariffs. And one of them is the enhanced border security measures. Basically, deployment of troops. The United States has urged Canada to bolster its border security to curb illegal immigration and drug trafficking, particularly fentanyl. In response, Canada agreed to implement a $1.3 billion border security plan, which includes deploying additional personnel and resources along the US Canada border. The next one is an appointment of the fentanyl czar. Combating drug trafficking, the United States has requested Canada appoint a dedicated official to oversee efforts against fentanyl trafficking. Canada has agreed to this demand by appointing a fentanyl czar to coordinate and intensify efforts to prevent the flow of fentanyl into the United States. I think we're only like responsible for like 1%. I think there's another tactic to this, and I think that's why. Trade concessions. The United States has imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports with a lower 10% tariff on Canadian energy products. These tariffs are intended to address perceived trade imbalances and encourage Canada to make concessions in trade negotiations. And consideration of political integration, um, proposal of statehood. President Trump has suggested that Canada could become the 51st state of the United States to avoid tariffs and benefit from a lower tax and enhanced military protection.
Let's hold that
This
thought about
proposal,
the becoming the 51st state for a second. Do you think that would ever happen?
well,
Because
I'll talk about something right here. So I basically had ChatGPT, and once again, there's a whole other thing that happened with the deep seek, which kind of hurt the market for a bit. Um, we have to talk about Donald Trump both as a politician and as a business person. Trump as a businessman, we'll talk about his maximalist opening offers. In business, Trump often starts negotiations with extreme demands to push the other party into a defensive position. We've seen this a lot in the past with him, where he does his signature hand,
yeah,
where he tries to
gets
basically,
assert
uh,
dominance.
yeah, he's trying to insert dominance right off the bat. He did another thing with, I think it was Larry King, where he sat down in an interview with Larry King and he basically said, "Hey, do you have a tic tac or something like that? Something to do with his he had a bad breath, which I don't think he did. I think it was just one of those things where he starts messing with your head right off the bat so that you're questioning both yourself and,
Right.
he's putting
Throws
an
in a wrench in the
imbalance on you,
system.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So that comes down to his leverage and pressure. That's always how he's been as a businessman. Trump's approach relies on creating leverage to make the other side feel pressure to negotiate on his terms. An example being the imposition of tariffs on Canadian imports puts financial strain on Canadian businesses and the economy, forcing Canada to make trade concessions. Another one is using fear and uncertainty. Trump, as a businessman, often unpredictable, uses unpredictability to force his opponents into reactive positions. The vague threat of a trade war forces Canada into uncertainty, making its leaders more willing to compromise to avoid economic damage. And then lastly, focusing on a win-loss mindset. Unlike traditional trade policies that focus on a mutual benefit, Trump has a zero-sum view of negotiations. And an example is he sees trade deficits as losses, even though they are often a reflection of a strong economy with high consumer demand. And then quickly, I want to just talk about his Trump as a politician. He's got a populist rhetoric, which is Trump understands that anti-trade and anti-globalization sentiment plays well with his base. An example is he presents tariffs as a he's punishing foreign competitors and protecting American jobs, even if economic reality is more complex. And then B is playing to domestic politics. His America First agenda means he prioritizes policies that appear to favor U.S. industries, regardless of economic efficiency. An example, by imposing tariffs on Canada, he can claim to be protecting American manufacturing, a key constituency in swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And then election and political image. With a 2024 victory, Trump under his belt, Trump likely sees this as an opportunity to solidify his legacy as a tough negotiator. And basically, the 2025 tariff escalation serves as a political signal that he will continue his hardline stance on trade, even against longtime allies like
Mm.
Canada. And the last one being the unpredictability as a political weapon. In the art of the deal, Trump states that keeping people uncertain and off balance is a strategy for gaining an upper hand. An example is his erratic statements like threatening full economic uh, decoupling from Canada keeps leaders like Justin Trudeau guessing, forcing them to react rather than set terms of negotiation. This is a very interesting play. I think this is Rep Trump's alley. Sorry, is it his ways? And ultimately, basically, everyone goes, "Oh, he's kind of backed off for 30 days." He's just keeping us on our toes. Do I think that tariffs are going to happen? Unless you really want, like, hell bent on doing that, I don't think so.
Mm. I heard too.
Because once again, go ahead.
I heard too. He mentioned a comment. He's saying that it wasn't fair competition, that we couldn't have any of the U.S. banks compete in Canada, and that was one of the tactics. So he's kind of misdirecting too, saying it's all about fentanyl and like illegal immigrants coming through Canada, but realistically he has other objectives. So
Well,
he's not being super forthright about it.
Trudeau's has been a key factor in it, I think. He said some things that Trump didn't like about Trump. He's kind of
Yep.
not bullied him, but he's kind of made fun of him.
Yep.
And I think this is Trump's way of basically trying to take back a position. And I don't believe if it was Trudeau in power, I'm not saying it could have been another liberal leader or conservative leader, politics aside on that. I think that he's just trying to get an upper hand on someone that he doesn't really feel, or he just feel that has maybe spited him.
Hmm. If you're a first time home buyer or someone who's looking to invest currently in Canada,
Mhm.
would you take into consideration any of these tariffs or threats, or would you
I think you
say
have to. I think you have to take a look at everything. The economy is so based off of micros and macros, but we also have to take into account all the other countries. And obviously, just like a stock market, an issue in China can ruin the stock market here, right? So, and even the housing market here because it puts fear, right?
I
So
guess sorry, no, go
what I
ahead,
could
go ahead.
see, well, let's just talk about it in general, right? What the impacts can have, like short-term impacts. We can have higher costs on Canadian exporters due to tariffs, and that hurts some of the Canadian businesses. So people getting laid off. Like if you got a lot of renters, if you're an investor looking to rent out, like the Windsor economy is based off of automotive, and we're starting to see some tech now as well. But we have the battery plant. We're so built on Canadian automotive that if Trump really wants to force
If he tariffed
um,
that, we'd be in trouble. Yeah, at least Windsor would be for
if
sure.
he wants to say, "Hey, we only want you to build in the states," even though we're so close to Detroit, we're going to be affected by that, and that puts a lot of jobs at risk,
Hmm.
right? And that's in both the main jobs and then feeder jobs too, and then that it goes even further into mom and pop restaurants and other things where people spend their money at, right? So as an investor, you definitely need to that into account. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, a good investor is looking at their numbers, or looking at everything, right? And they're buying based off of um, their stance on their numbers. And I think right now, with that being said, the market's kind of in a standstill. I think it's a good time for investors to really look at the market right now and maybe bully their way into a good deal. Because at the end of the day, if your numbers work with and you're buying properties with rent from 5, 10 years ago, because you're buying on a commercial mortgage, then there's potential opportunity that, okay, well, the rents are going for $2,000 a month for a two-bedroom unit, hypothetically speaking. Maybe you run your numbers at 1750. You don't run them at $2,000.
Mhm.
Well, if the current tenant in there is paying 1250, well, you still have mega upside per unit.
Absolutely. I see what you're saying.
So
That
so many people try to over leverage themselves, and that's what gets into situations when the market, like for example, when we had our the market collapse, right? With the mortgage rates going up, people were trying to over leverage by, trying to maximize rent values and basically refinance out at every single dollar they could get out of the market, or they were buying a property, like for example, a lot of these brand new properties on the market, that new buildings are always like well over what the average pricing of a property is, right? And the rents don't make sense. So if you're buying something where the rent doesn't make sense and you're over leveraged to begin with, well, of course you're gonna go in default on that. So you need to buy smart
mm,
and buy based off the numbers.
I think you hear it here first. It's always about the numbers. So whether it's a time like now with the economy being a little bit slow or being a bull market, you can always be buying.
I saw a fiveplex myself about last year, five units for $500,000. I didn't buy it. On paper, everyone goes, "Oh my God, it's a great deal." But the rents were so low. And do I want to play the game of trying to remove five tenants out of the property
Right.
just
When
to
it's
be
not
able
even
to?
guaranteed. Even if you try to cast for keys, they're getting wise to it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that's the thing on a
Yeah.
commercial mortgage, it still didn't cash flow, or it didn't make any sense at 100 a door. And was it worth more than 100 a door? It definitely was.
Yeah.
But the
Assuming the
issue
rents
was
were
the
up.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If the numbers were up, right? And you play a game where, okay, well, first of all, it wasn't worth $500,000. It was on paper is actually worth maybe 400, right? Well, the seller's not going to sell it to me for 400 grand. And for me to get it to be worth 500,000, I would have to remove at least two tenants.
hmm And in that meantime, too, you're probably on a some private mortgage or a bridge loan as you're trying to
Yeah,
turn over
the
this and
bank's not going to
stabilize
give you
this.
the
Yeah.
difference. They're not.
Exactly. And so it's definitely risky. So you're on like a clock, trying to get these tenants out and then re-rented and maybe renovated in the same place too. So
And that's why we see
a lot
people
of
come and go
uncertainty.
so quickly, because they get some of these views. Like, I mean, we're just talking about this the other day with all these some of these gurus that we've seen come and go, right? You try, if you see someone that, hey, don't compare yourself to other people, because there's so many, oh my God, there's so many investors that got a little too cocky in the sense of with social media and having to always land a deal. They're buying just to have a deal, or they're trying to buy something and lock it up to say, "Oh, I have this because I have a bunch of investors in the background saying, I need to do a deal with you. I need to do a deal with you." Well, it comes back and hurts not only you, but and your investors, and your name gets slandered. I mean, we've seen people, so many people that had great businesses with real estate in general, just try to buy things for the sake of buying it because they had investors willing to lend them money. Well, I'd rather say, hold on, I'll find a deal when it comes up and buy based off that time. If I have to tell people no, sometimes
hmm
it's better to turn down money than just trying to land a deal just because the sake of you have cash on hand.
Yeah, you want to be
Because they
patient
say
and
that
pick
you
your
keep buying all
shots.
these properties. Well, what's your turnaround?
hmm I've rented that personally myself, where you're a little too eager and so you jump in, and then you see, if you would have if I would have had a little bit more patience or just waited and analyzed a little bit deeper, then I probably would have had a lot easier time with some of these deals. So you're totally right. Just gotta have you just don't want to have shiny object syndrome. But yeah, we should talk about the stats here. I have them up on the
Oh, okay.
screen.
I got it.
Tell me what
I'm
you're
staring.
tell me what you're thinking. What you're seeing in the market right now.
Ooh, what am I thinking? So I'll start off with what my thought process is. It's definitely an interesting market. I've been having a lot of conversations with my sellers, and it is slow. Even the multifamily, single family, there's some properties that are getting 30 plus offers. I'm not gonna lie. There is, if
What types
things
of
are
properties?
priced single family, well, anything priced improperly to gauge a bidding war, right? So,
Mm,
for example, if you have a house, any house that's worth 500, if it's an investor property or a house for a um, a family, if it's priced for 400 grand, knowing it's worth 500,000, you're going to get multiple offers on it for sure. There's still bidding wars. Everyone thinks that the bidding war is over, but it all depends on how the seller's willing to react to the market in the sense of, are they going to allow the agent to underlist to try to get, as many people in the door to sell and get fair market value. And then we have a lot of buyers that have bought recently, still in the last 2 or 3 years, where the mortgage rates were a lot higher and they got beat up a bit, right? They don't want to take a loss. So
Hmm.
you have some people taking a loss. You have some people that don't want to take a loss. So the market's all over the place. Like for example, we saw about 80 plus listings yesterday to like 14 sales. It was rough. It was a rough day.
Oh
And
wow.
that's I 3 to 1 listing to sales is a pretty normal time right now, but we're seeing a little bit past that. Let me see if I can bring
It
up the
sounds like a
numbers.
mixed bag actually.
It's
You're getting
very much
yeah, more
it's very
sporadic.
much so.
It seemed like,
So
remind me, January was a bit, obviously it was slower, but there weren't really as
well,
many
let's
bidding
take a
wars
look
either.
at it right off the numbers. We had 2025, 815 listings to 262 sales. So we first of all, we had 26% increase in listings compared to last year. And last year people were saying, oh, 2025 is going to be a much better year. Yeah, we had more listings, sure. So for buyers, you have a lot more options on the market, but those options are not always a good option because some of these properties are listed for well over what they're worth because they were bought during a bad time or the sellers are trying to chase the market. And
Absolutely.
then obviously sales were down almost 10%. So we have in 2024, 291 sales. This year we have 262 sales obviously for January, right? So we have way more listings, way less sales. Our average price, however, has gone up. So people are seeing the average price. They're like, oh, that's a good sign. Well, sure, but that makes it harder to sell things now. When the average price point goes up, you're losing more and more buyers, right? Because a lot of people can't afford to have $572,000 per property. Because it's to qualify for that, you need to be making probably well over $100,000 net without debt, right? So,
Mm.
and then the medium sale price is also up as well at 530,000. So, I mean, the average sale price and the median sale price are up, but we really need to be looking at the listings and sales, which for an investor, I will tell you something right now. This is a good way to potentially get yourself some deals. Um, Take this into account that there's a lot of listings, there's a lot of options on the market, and there's not a lot of sales right now.
Right. People be more
So
desperate and maybe actually take low ball offers.
potentially,
Yeah.
because some people are going to look at this and go, oh, I shouldn't buy right now. I'll wait for the market to pick back up. Well, if you can get yourself a good deal, and trust me, we're negotiating good deals right now behind the scenes that makes sense. One of my clients just locked up a 2 unit building that was sold in 2022 for $400,000, got foreclosed on, and my buyer just picked it up for 267,000.
Wow.
So,
That's a great
and it
steal.
cash flows day one with
Yeah,
rents
at
from
that
five
price
years
point.
ago,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? So he'll buy it and then he can almost refinance it out right off the bat because the purchase price is lower than what the actual value is. Not only that, if he gets one tenant out, which he doesn't really care about right now, he's cash flowing. He's going to buy it and keep it going. But if one tenant decides to leave down the road, his cash flow skyrockets even more. Then he could refinance out there. So he's got a perfect play regardless of what he's doing.
That's huge. Yeah. See, diamonds are everywhere. Or maybe they need to have someone like yourself be the realtor so they can help find those deals and actually negotiate them.
it, there's a reason why me and you are not buying 5 deals a day because these deals don't they come up once in a while and people wait on them. This was a listing that was up for quite a bit of time,
Hmm.
and we managed to score, right? I mean, once again though, it was originally listed at a much higher price
Right.
point,
They kept dropping it.
and the seller had to figure out where it needed to be,
Hmm.
and then so that my buyer was looking at it and goes, wait a second, this kind of makes sense now.
Absolutely.
So is it going to happen day one? Like there's some people are calling me up, hey, let's start throwing lowball offers in 100,000 under what they're
Yeah.
asking.
Then
Well,
it's wasting your time too. unless
For
you're
sure.
willing
I mean, well, then
to
again, it might,
hustle.
and honestly, some of these deals might be worth that, to
Some
be
bigger
honest with
ones,
you. And then
yeah,
there's some other people
yeah,
that are just trying to do it for the sake of doing it, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, it all comes down to play, right? So there is opportunities. There's probably a lot more opportunity off market, but once again, I mean, I have 5 or 6 wholesalers that are calling me uh, uh, weekly, and some of them with the same deal. It's pretty funny. Um, but some of these deals coming in, like I've told maybe 2 deals that have come up that I'm like, hey, you should pursue this. Like, try to break the seller down a bit more. The rest of them were all like, hey, the seller bought for 800 grand in LaSalle 2 years ago at the peak. It's probably worth 600 grand now.
Yeah.
And there's no play for the wholesaler too, because no one,
There's no
the
margin. Yeah.
clientele is, his clientele is not um, looking to buy a family home, right?
Yeah. A lot of times I find, yeah, the wholesalers are great for the investment properties, but not so much if you're looking for just residential, just family.
So here's the thing. There's a common misconception about what a wholesaler is really good for. I've worked with so many of them, and so many people just
Hmm.
try to lock up a deal. A wholesaler should be really good, and they should be focusing on, first of all, not scamming people. Where
Right.
there should be
Everyone
some
needs to
level of
win.
ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but majority of the wholesale deals I've ever done, they've been hoarder properties where the seller was too either embarrassed to list on the MLS, because I've bought in properties where it wasn't safe to walk through the house because there was rats and there's debris and garbage, and it was just terrible. That Okay, well, it makes sense because you're not going to, first of all, it's not going to get fair market value because the house is in disarray. The seller just doesn't want to keep it privately. Makes sense. Another option too, we've done a lot of these where sellers are basically about to lose a property to the banks, and they can't list it on the MLS. A house is not going to sell in a week. We have some buyers that can actually um, close in days. I'm talking days.
Wow. Yeah. Super fast closing.
So that's the thing. And once again, those sellers understand that, hey, I'm taking a hit here because this is my situation.
Hmm.
I'm losing my house to the bank. I don't have time to list on the MLS. I don't want to deal with a bunch of people coming through. But for the average person, they should be talking to a realtor, and they should be working and getting it listed on the market. And that's why half the wholesale deals don't go through, because they're not the wholesalers that the product, right? They're not
Yeah. The
the
property
right
is not
product.
really aligning with the investors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. But we'll put this
So
out there, like Jeremy and I keep saying, is like, if any wholesalers out there, people have off market properties, or if you're looking to sell, reach out and we'll be happy to take a look. But let's,
I've bought in so many of them, and I've had my clients buy so many of them, because there's a lot of properties that just don't they need to be purchased that way,
yeah,
right? So there's a great opportunity, I think, especially right now. I Another thing too we're talking about. I kind of want to lean into the tariff thing really quickly here, because
sure.
people are running, and this also goes back to what I'm thinking about the market here. BMO recently just put out a report. I don't know if you saw it or not. Was it they're saying upwards of 6 rate reductions of about 0.25 each
Hmm.
by the end of the year. So to kind of give you an idea, actually, I did TikTok on this as well. Our current I think our current one right now is at 3% right now for our overnight rate, which is what the banks lend to other banks with, right? So that's the overnight rate, and everyone gets the overnight rate confused with what they're getting it. No, we get our mortgage based off of prime, and then on a variable mortgage, it'd be prime plus discount.
Hmm.
Um, and then when you get your lines of credit, it's prime plus X percent or X amount. So in this case here for variable mortgages, if we see the overnight rate drop to 1.5%, usually a bank's going to want to give a mortgage to you or myself at a spread of usually around 2.2%, which would bring you to around 3.7% prime. And that's what they kind of offer it, right? And then with variable mortgages, usually we see a discount of about zero point 0.5, which would bring our mortgage down to about 3.2%. And obviously, it's based off of credit. It's based off a few other factors. If it's a rental, there's usually a couple percent point uh, put on that as well. So um, to have a mortgage around the 3% range is great. When I first started in real estate in 2016, I think the mortgage rates was around mid threes. And I mean, they were talking about raising it. I think we did raise it a little bit at that time, but anywhere under 4%, I think will really stimulate the economy because most people have locked in at rates around the 2% range.
Hmm.
My duplex is at 2.9. My renewal is coming up in August for one of my duplexes. So
You'll
for me
be
to go
lining up
from
the
2
timing
point,
just perfectly there.
I mean, here's the
Yeah.
thing, if it goes from 2.9 to 3.5 or even 3.75,
Yeah, you
it's
can
not,
live with
it's
that.
yeah, and knowing that I could probably refinance it out too
Hmm.
off of today's rates, and pull out equity as well, which is really, really good. So, but don't get me wrong, there's people that have mortgage rates as low as like 1.5%. Obviously, those people were on variables and they got hit up. I had one client, he's at 6.2% at the peak, and now it's down to I think somewhere around, I think he says like 4.5.
Okay.
So, um, that'll benefit those people for sure, right? So.
Hmm. Yeah, well, hopefully with all the tariffs as well, our government doesn't start printing money to stimulate the economy and then also cause more
Well, this is what
inflation.
that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The
They've been
here's the
talking
thing. I
about
mean,
it, but
if we lower our mortgage rates, that is stimulating the
that as
economy,
well.
and we are going
Yeah.
to be back to fucking square one. My apologies there, but
We'll
I
be
mean, as long
yo-yoing. Yep.
here's the thing, as long as we stay of a range around 3.5%, personally, I think 4% is probably still a pretty decent number, but let's just say they do it with the worst case scenario here is as long as we don't have rates at like 1.5%, 2% mortgage rates, which I think some people really, really want, and that's greed. And that's the reason why our economy is the way it is right now. And that's the reason why our real estate market's destroyed was because of those rates. We don't need that. We just need to get a decent rate around 3.5, call it a day based on that around there, and we should be able to be somewhat pretty fine. Obviously, we don't want tariffs, but we'd also take into account that tariffs also increase inflation, and
That's what I'm
then
saying. Yeah,
lowering
everything's
lowered
going to inflate
mortgage rates,
prices up.
yeah, I mean, all this stuff is all going to create inflation. So.
Hmm. Let's go back to the stats then and look at kind of your average home prices because then that's going to be probably affected. If we look back a couple months from now,
Yes
maybe
and
this
no. I
average
mean,
sale
here's
price
the thing.
might be jacked up.
Here's the thing. Back in the day, at the peak, we were selling a home. We were basically selling on an average like 7 days on market. Realistically, it was like 3 days on market. Our average, I don't even know what our average day on market is right now, to be honest with you, at the top of my head. But to kind of give you an idea, do I see the average sale price skyrocketing? The answer is no, because look at the sales and look at the listings to sales rate right now.
Hmm.
Average sale prices go up when we don't have enough listing. We had a terrible supply and demand issue where we were basically at a 2 to 1. For every two listing, we had one sale. We're at like when we have 80 listings and 14 sales, kind of give an idea there. That's like a 1 to 6 rate.
Yeah, it's a
We
bad
need some
ratio.
time to catch
Yeah.
up first, right? So, if we go back into a supply and demand issue, our average price sale will go up, and obviously with inflation, it will go up. Could it go to 600,000? For sure. I mean, our average price point, I think, was close to 725, give or take around there, was what our peak was.
Hmm.
I don't foresee that happening again. I mean, if they start dropping rates to 1%, is it going to happen again? Probably, but I mean, then we're going to be in the same position with people foreclosing. And honestly, for me, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to buy properties based off my numbers if it makes sense. And then when people get foreclosed on again, we'll continue to buy from them.
Hmm.
It's just a game, right?
Yeah, it's all about being in the market, not timing it. I know that's pretty cliche. Everyone's heard that, but it's true. Um, Anything else you want to say about these stats?
Can you go up to the very top just quickly?
Sure. Let me.
Um, so look at 2025 and look at 2024 at the top. Scroll over a little bit. Sales volume, $192 million, just under 193 million dollars to 196 and almost 196 and a half. So we'll say 193 and 196 and a half. We'll just round it up, kind of get that as an idea there. Look at the difference in sales volume. We're not pushing the same amount. Obviously, even 2023 in December was like I think it was 2022. December was our absolute lowest price point, but look how much we've gone up a little bit and then we teeter down. I think we're finding our balance. I think is a very balanced market. I think this is what the market, which most people don't know unless you've bought a house from like 15, 20 years ago, because a house used to list on the market for 6 months and then get relisted and relisted again.
Hmm.
But we're pretty much back into I would say a stable mixed market. I think the buyers do have an upper hand at the moment. However, in any market, a good location sells. And if I was an investor right now, I would be utilizing this to get the best locations for my portfolio. Don't be buying. Too many people at the peak had to buy for the sake of buying because they just needed to buy a property because house prices were going up. At this point right here, we're pretty stagnant. When a property comes up in the best part of Walkerville and you want to get a multifamily, like that Walkerville is only going to probably get better. You buy in Walkerville, but you're not going to buy like a Hull or a Langlois, or you're going to want to buy the primo streets like Windermere. You're going to want to buy um basically Monmouth, anything around that kind of portion, right? Chilver kind of thing, right? You're gonna want to pick up location based. Not saying that those streets were the other streets weren't good. If you can get by the riverfront too, like the 200 block, it's gonna be great. You want to try to build your portfolio today based off a location, and I think that's gonna be the
Mm.
best thing to do, so that when the market eventually goes to peak, you can sell off your best location properties at the highest price point.
Interesting. So a lot of people say you want to buy and hold, and if possible, never sell. But you're saying, well,
Well,
if the
you
price is
always want to
right,
rebalance your portfolio. Any good
right?
investor, regardless of whether it's real estate or a stock portfolio, always rebalances their portfolio.
Hmm.
Because
So
let's just say that you have a duplex, you buy a duplex on Riverside Drive. Great location, right? However, guess what? Now you've grown, you've had 5 or 6 years. Maybe the market picks back in 10 years, whoever knows, right? And all of a sudden that duplex is now worth 700 grand. And so you bought it for 500 grand. Well, you're not gonna want to hold a duplex for so long. Maybe you're at the point where you want to take that
trade up into
profits
bigger
and
multis.
use it to buy a fourplex, fiveplex, sixplex, right? So yeah.
Interesting. And back to the point too, you said buying those nicer areas. Would you ever consider? Because I guess it's different strategies for different investors. But would you ever consider investing in those C plus neighborhoods that are on the cusp of being
100%.
gentrified?
You should be buying based off of numbers. If you can get a really, really good deal on, like, say, downtown, once again, let's talk about Wyandotte. If it makes sense to buy, you fix it up, you get it going, but you're gonna know that your tenant quality is gonna be fucking horrible. What you do is you basically burr the portion of that you can out, and maybe you hold it for a little bit, but basically you want to get rid of that right away. Utilize that funds to buy your next
Right.
project.
Yeah. You know
You
you're going to
never
be
want to
more in and out.
hold, you never really want to hold anything in a terrible location. I have a duplex. It's on Airbnb. I never see myself renting that long term. If Airbnb in the city cracks down finally, then I'm screwed. I'm just gonna sell it off. I'll make my money from it. And I'll move that money to a better product.
Whereabouts is that Airbnb? I'm just curious. So people are probably
It's
wondering where in
downtown
that.
Windsor.
Oh,
Yeah,
downtown
it's
Windsor.
downtown
Okay.
Windsor.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of. I have a few properties in that area. They're basically cash flowing right now. I mean,
Hmm.
they will cash flow if I go long term. Even if they go long term, they'll cash flow. If I go midterm, they'll cash flow even more. But at the end of the day, it's a low quality neighborhood. And when you buy a low quality neighborhood, you're gonna get low quality tenants. You can only polish a turd so much. And unfortunately, the downtown core, we'll call it what it is not very
Hmm.
good, right? If you want to buy for and hold for 30 years and you got a great deal on a product, great. Continue to do that. You're gonna have product. If you have a good property manager in place that's gonna deal with all the headaches that come with it. I self-manage. I don't want to deal with those headaches. It's not worth my time, effort, and money. So what I'll do is I'll buy those products.
Hmm.
I had a duplex I bought in December of 2022 for $235,000. That duplex I sold for 425, and I only put about 65, maybe $70,000 into it.
That's
The
awesome.
reason why I sold it, it would have cash flowed. The reason being it was outside the areas for my Airbnb, and it wasn't in a good enough neighborhood for me to rent it out. And guess what happened? We sold it off. We rented it out for the seller, for the buyer, sorry, from the buyer.
Hmm.
And they had some turnover rightly, but they have some students on one floor. The upstairs turns over a little bit more. Don't need that headache with my life. I like to make money, move it to a better product. buy stuff in better locations.
Speaking of better locations, I know this is more of a side tangent, but maybe for the viewers, people who might end up watching this long, what are some other areas that you might not want to invest in? Because we always hear about the good places. We want Walkerville, right? South Windsor's
Yeah,
nice.
Walkerville's here.
LaSalle's
Yeah,
great.
Walkerville, to
Tecumseh.
give you an idea, I had a client buy near the not near the peak, but they got it just after that. Just sold it. So he bought it for 600,000. Spent a little bit of money, didn't do it go anything crazy. Most of the tenants were retained. He only switched out two of the three residential units were vacant on closing. The third one was he did a cash for keys on that one. We sold it for $1.157 million. And
Wow.
I'll tell you, he didn't put a lot of money into that property. He did comparatively, right? So you bought, and that was in on Wyandotte in East Windsor, A plus location. Um, and that those it took a while to sell because we were priced high for 7 units, 1.15, but it sold to a local investor.
Wow.
So those primo locations will always sell. And he made out like a bandit on that, right? But if
Hmm.
he would have bought at the same purchase price in, let's say, the West Windsor area, on Sandwich, but maybe more towards the industrial, for like say like maybe not Queen, like Prince and Queen or something like that, that return on investment. I think there's a few multifamilies up there for sale for around the same price mine was with similar rents. Guess what? They're not selling. Those are not selling
Right.
because at that point you want to the lower the quality of the neighborhood, the higher cap rate goes out. Everyone keeps trying. Some of the newer investors, they go, "Oh, what's the cap rates at? What's the cap rates at?" Well,
Hmm.
the cap rate's based off of your location. Like you can't tell me you're gonna buy based off a cap rate in Walkerville and maintain that cap rate in West Windsor. They're two different locations, two different qualities of tenants. It's more of a risk for you to buy in West Windsor for the most part, so you want to have a higher cap rate.
For for my
So
own benefit and the viewers, what's an average cap rate for that Walkerville area versus the West End? Like give that kind of reference ranges, like a 4.5, 5, 6 cap in Walkerville
Well,
versus
here's the thing.
10
What's a
cap.
mortgage rate right now? 5%. You
Right.
gotta add your expenses. So to tack on another 1.5 points, you should be buying based off almost a 7 cap rate, to be honest with you. I mean, once again, how is your cash on cash returns on those too as well? There's different ways of different outlooks on that, right?
Mm,
Um, are you buying a 7.5% cap rate in Walkerville? Probably not.
that's
But
what I'm saying. It's probably a little
once
lower than that.
again, that you might dip a little bit lower in better locations, right?
Hmm.
And that could change based off the location inside of Walkerville.
Agreed. Yeah, that's why I said there's a spread.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you just gotta run your numbers and then look at the quality of tenants. Like if you basically are look basically the way I always tell my clients, drive down the street. If you see children's toys on the front lawn or mattresses on the front lawn, which you can drive through many streets in Windsor and see those,
mhm,
that's gonna say that your tenant qualities are probably not gonna be very good.
not great.
And once again, I don't want to sound bad, but it's the truth,
Yep.
right?
That's the same thing. You
So
want to look for dilapidated properties too. If they don't take care of it, the tenant profile in that area is probably not the greatest either.
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. If you go to, let's just say that you go into the downtown Windsor area, the Victoria Streets is basically there's a lot of wealth on Victoria Avenue or Victoria Avenue and Boulevard. Um, if you get an investment property on that street, great. You'll do well because it's a really nice street. But if you buy maybe one street and try to time your location on on a Google or something like that, you might do pretty well. But that you're not going to be paying the same prices buying on Victoria. Same thing with Walkerville. Like you have a great street, like for example, Kildare.
Hmm.
Well, if you go one or two streets away, maybe like a Lincoln, um, maybe a Gladstone,
You
right? A
start
little
going
bit
towards the
further out.
central Windsor. Yeah.
But yeah, still pretty good location in Walkerville, right? Great
Hmm.
location.
More on the
And
outskirts
but
though.
you're not paying the same prices you would pay on to be on Chilver or Kildare as you would be paying on. And if you are paying the same price as Lincoln on Chilver, then no, it just doesn't.
Then you're
There's
getting swindled.
streets matter, right? Streets matter,
Yeah.
location matters. And we could sit here a whole episode and talk about what streets are to buy on, what streets not to buy on. There's no right or wrong answer. You should be buying everything based off your numbers, and if it makes sense, I will buy in the worst neighborhood. If I'm once again, people are probably going to call me out for buying on Drouillard, and the stigmatization is there on Drouillard. It's a rough and tough area, and if you go onto St. Luke or you go somewhere around there, it's not the greatest right now. And my play on that one is it's so low on my portfolio list of my product that I'm taking a risk, but I'm also trying to change the neighborhood myself.
Hmm.
If I go
You
to
see the vision
downtown
for it.
Windsor on Olette and I buy one or two properties on Olette, guess what? I'm not changing anything on Olette, but I can potentially help change things in on Drouillard.
And
So
if you
there's a
want to learn more about
difference. You have
Drouillard,
to look at that way as
oh,
well.
sorry. I was just going to say, if
Sorry?
people want to learn more about Drouillard, I didn't mean to cut you off there. They should check out our previous podcast episode with Michael DeFazio. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
You can check that out on our YouTube page. So go.
Mhm.
It was really entertaining. And then Jeremy and Mike, they dive into it and talk about the BIA and kind of the vision and how it's been changing and for the better. Yeah.
Great episode. But once again, like you buy based off the street. Like you look at how many properties are on the street. How is the other people around you? How is your neighbors? Do you have any opportunity to grow in that neighborhood too? Like for example, with Drouillard, I looked at it. I'm not trying to buy all of Drouillard. I have a cutoff. It's on Richmond pretty much for the most part.
Mhm.
So I'm
Nowhere
buying
south of
from the
that, right?
waterfront to Richmond, right? But here's the thing. The people there that are bought in, they're bought in. And there's like for example, the property beside me just sold for more than I paid for mine. The fourplex beside me sold for more than I pay for mine. I'm potentially buying the property beside me, so I'll have 90 feet of frontage on a street, right? Potentially a few other off-market opportunities. But ultimately, I have the ability to kind of almost not single-handedly, but make change as well. And you have to look at that. If I go to Walkerville, if I buy three, four, five properties in Walkerville, I'm not changing anything. Um, there's
Just
just
because
so
it's
much you
already
have to
been
look
so picked over already
pretty
established.
much. Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? So you have to look at different areas. I can't change downtown. I can't single-handedly do it. I don't have the funds to
You
do
need
it.
some big
You need a
business.
whole crew.
Yeah.
And then the
S-
people downtown
Some
don't
big
even
REITs
really
and
believe in
funds.
downtown, right?
Yeah.
So say you go to West End Windsor, right? You look at Sandwich Street. You have a really nice pocket of Sandwich, but I think that's all been bought up. Is there any other locations you can buy there? You have to go further back, but if you go too far back, now you're kind of like on the outskirts, you're too much into an industrial area,
Hmm.
and that takes into play. And that can also be related into Drouillard and the reason why I don't go past Richmond, because once you kind of go over the train tracks there, and don't get me wrong, I think Clark Galley's doing a big build there on Richmond and Drouillard.
I
So
think
he'll
on
probably maybe
the
help
corner
push
there,
it.
right? Or he's yeah.
Yeah. So I think he might push it back a bit and help
It's
open it up.
slowly
But
that
I mean,
gentrification happens and
but then
improvement.
you're only adding
Slowly, slowly,
one
slowly.
more unit because the building beside him or so on and so forth,
Yep.
right? And there's some other potential changes happening up there, but it takes time, right? So you have to look at every street individually. You have to um, kind of just key point it and then look around you, right?
Hmm.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I appreciate you mentioned that because you have a great insights on different areas and how to buy. So if people have questions and want to know more, they should definitely reach out to you, talk about that, and you can kind of guide them on how to purchase and where to purchase. And me and
Here's
Jeremy
the
are always
thing,
open to talk.
just keep listening to these talks, come to the events, talk to other like-minded individuals, other investors, because I'm doing my thing here, you're doing your thing there. Everyone's got their own little taste, but if you're looking to like, oh, maybe I want to invest in Walkerville or Drouillard, you talk to the people that are investing there, you see the people, you're gonna meet these people, right?
Hmm.
And then it makes you feel good about where you're buying at. Like if you're trying to buy maybe in like say South Windsor, that's a different whole other area. We don't really talk too much about it because there's an opportunity to do house hack, duplex conversions. The lots are all like 60 plus size lots, which means that you could potentially even tear them down if you get the right deal and build a multifamily on it. People
Yep.
are doing that. There's so many different locations that like we could sit here for
So many
hours and talk
strategies.
about locations.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's great locations. You LaSalle is mostly single family. Tecumseh is mostly single family. There is multifamily in those areas, but if you can get them, you're buying based off a location. And
At a
still, at the end of
premium.
the
Yeah.
day, even though you buy Yes, but at the same time too, if you have a property that you're saying, oh, it's on the greatest street ever, but will the bank mortgage it? Like, is it
Hmm.
priced right? Is still so if you can buy a good deal in the best locations, because it has to be able to be mortgaged by a bank. And when you go into commercial buildings or commercial mortgages, you can't really, unless you're going to want to put more money out of your pocket, which is a bad idea. You should never want to put as much as you want to put as minimal down as you possibly can. The reason being is you need to take that money and then
Put to work
basically
somewhere else.
reutilize. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You need to be able to buy another property or be able to utilize that for to kind of get in there, do renovations, do turnover, right? And increase value, which you can then take it and redeploy into other
Mhm.
properties.
And that's a great segue to say that we actually have a great property tour and meetup coming the end of this month, because it's going to be a commercial property that was converted partially to residential. And this will be downtown Windsor on actually right near the Bitcoin building. If you remember Ray Blanchard, we're going to be viewing his properties. So guys, come out February 27th. That's going to be a Thursday. And we're going to start slightly earlier at 5:30. And we'll be touring that place. You'll see the residential, what he's planned there. Talk about kind of some of the process that it took. Check out one of his residential, that's going to be Airbnb, and then also with his commercial space. And then after that, we're going to go to a venue, which is still TBD, but it's going to be on Pearlisher somewhere, or if not, somewhere downtown close by. So we're looking forward to that.
We have a few spots we've reached out to. Yeah.
Yep, we're working
Tom's
on it.
been leading that, and we're trying to make it the best as that works for everyone there. A big thing about us is we try not to take any of your money. As you can see in all of our meetings, we have never asked for a single dollar.
Nothing.
All of our
We just want
meetings
to
have
provide
been
value.
free, and that's one thing for us as well. We don't want to do an event and then charge you $23 a head. Then you have to go to an event and still buy drinks. So we try to work with as many vendors as possible so that you can attend these events for free
Hmm.
and come and just mingle afterwards. And anything you want to spend, if you want to get food or drinks, that's on your own time and on your own dime.
Yeah, help out the local business.
Of course.
But yeah, we really want to just provide the best value possible and have a low barrier to entry. And that means that it can be a seasoned investor or someone who's just looking to get started, anywhere in between, or even if you're not necessarily an investor yourself, but you're in the trades or you're mortgage agent, whatever like that. Just as long as you're in the real estate space and you're interested, come out. Everyone's welcome. We'd love to have you. So we'll be posting that event here shortly, and then we'll follow up then with also the venue afterwards. But I think we would definitely want to start promoting Ray's building downtown. So
Absolutely.
really
And
unique.
Ray did a great job.
Absolutely.
I sat there basically pretty much just dissing downtown, and we talk about Ray, who he's got a few buildings on the go there as well,
He
and
does.
he's bought into downtown Windsor. He had a few deals I've seen even in the past that he's lined up, and he's a very smart guy, and the way he positions everything, the way that one building itself, the Bitcoin building, um, it worked. It was a success, and I'm excited to see what he's going to present to us now.
Absolutely. Super unique. Always an
Different,
interesting
yeah, very
solution.
different.
Not your typical way of investing, and unique financing as well, and just having an eye for things. So really looking forward to that one. But I think with
Absolutely,
that,
yeah, because his units too are out of the box, very Toronto
all,
style.
yeah,
It
furnished
is
rentals.
different,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
it's an yeah,
It's
absolutely. So I'm excited
polished.
for that one as well.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate your time. And in the future, too, if you guys are watching, thank you. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe on YouTube here and on Facebook. Like this, share this. Let us know any feedback, what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about. Look also, at the end of this month, this was the last shout out, we're going to be talking to Lyndon Crane. And it's going to be a sweet episode where we can kind of dive into kind of the mortgage world a little bit, but also being on the town council of Amherstburg, investing, all that in between. So lots of things in the pipeline for all things REI, and looking forward to having you guys come along for the ride. Jeremy, man, thanks for co-hosting with this with me tonight as well.
Absolutely, and thank you for letting me talk so much. I
No
know I took
worries.
up the whole show here,
No, it's all
so
good. It's all good. I know you
I
have a
feel
lot on your
bad
mind,
after.
and that's what they're here for. So, guys, thanks again, and we'll sign off for now. All right, bye.